UBC. Welcome. Specifically, Sean asked for information on genomics and bioinformatics and what the current and future state looks like at UBC and the different talks and discussions that are underway. And the format today, we'll do a brief presentation to talk about the work that's underway, like I said, the technology that's available right now, what's being discussed for the near future, and then at the end we're going to have an open discussion, get some feedback, get some guidance. Helen Burt sends her regrets, our AVP of Research. She would have liked to attend. Hopefully the timing was a little bit off. However, she did ask that we document and take back all the feedback that we get from yourselves and debrief on it later, as it is part of some ongoing work that's underway, which we'll talk about. So again, I'll do a brief introduction on what Research IT Support is. That's the group that I'm involved with, very brief. I'm not going into too much detail, just the relevant bits. Talk about the advanced computing computers, or current state, and then advanced computing future state highlights. And then we'll have our open discussion. So as far as the Research IT Support RIT introduction, just the core objective over at Research IT Support is the service partners that we work with, the different service groups that we have within Research IT Support, the organization, as well as the different stakeholder priorities, which is quite relevant in advanced computing. So really what Research IT Support is the bridge between the research community and IT service providers. We work with the research community in gathering the requirements for the research projects. We go and work with the IT service providers, either on the services that exist, or need to exist, or need to be changed, or provide certain services ourselves. Basically, we work at the proposal stage, the pre-award stage, help with consultations, also the post-award when it's the operational stage. Then if it's either the project closure or extension, that's where we get involved. The way that we break things down primarily is through the data acquisition, data analysis, and data dissemination functions of the data flow. Varies for every research project, but just very high level, this is how we get engaged. The service partners that we have are both internal and external. Internally, we're looking at UBC IT, Faculty of Medicine's Med IT, UBC Okanagan Campus IT. Certainly a lot of faculty IT staff are around, faculty members themselves and graduate students quite often that are becoming IT experts. Externally, we do a lot of work with Compute Canada Westgrid. We do have some representation from Compute Canada Westgrid here today. Brent's joining us right now. Roman will be joining us shortly. BCNet is another big partner that we work with, and of course vendors and consultants that are quite regularly involved in these sorts of work. Research IT Support, the primary service groups that we look at, the most interesting ones are the top three. That's the direct engagements, where we work directly with the research community, supporting the proposals, helping with operational support. The system level initiatives and opportunities that exist, so providing system-wide access to project management software, document management software, that sort of thing. And training and knowledge transfer, which is primarily for our service partners, and that's the kind way of saying, your stuff's not working, this is what you need to do to fix it, this is how you can bring more value to the research community. And then finally, I just want to mention the different stakeholder priorities. So we do recognize that for the services that we provide, there are a number of different...
I booked the room today for a field trip.
Just in the middle of the presentation.
I've got 30 kids. We need a room with no windows. Did you guys book the room?
Yes, I did.
I'm pretty sure I booked it.
What we can do is we can put you in one room and just close all the blinds.
I need pitch black, unfortunately. What time do you guys have?
12.
Sorry?
12.
12? Okay. We'll carry on in the afternoon.
Okay.
Sorry.
They can all join. Might not be very interesting for them. So the different stakeholder priorities. We have we know that the executive level has certain priorities. Principal investigator, co-investigators have certain priorities. The research associates and research assistants have priorities, as well as our IT service providers. Most of the feedback that we get from the research executives, they are interested in attracting and retaining highly qualified faculty members to conduct research. They're interested in the sustainability aspects of the infrastructure, financial and HR concerns, strategic alignment. Most of the principal and co-investigators that we talk to they want results. They don't want to sit around waiting for stuff to be provisioned or equipment to become available. Availability and flexibility, financial, operational support for the research associates and research assistants. They're primarily interested in the tools and technology, the training on how to use the tools and technology, the technical and scientific support that exists, as well as community involvement, community engagement. And our service providers, our IT service partners, community service, operational stability, technology leadership. So there's some overlap with that. It's just good to have that in the back of your mind that whatever solution, especially in advanced computing, all these different groups have different requirements. So we want to try and make the whole chain happy as best we can while still making the operational goal obtainable. So, what I want to talk about from the current state, first I want to make sure that we're all on the same page of the different terminology that's being used. In IT, there's some terms that are applied to research computing, advanced computing, and cyber infrastructure. So I'm just going to go quickly over those definitions so we're all on the same page. Talk about what the service partners that there currently are that exist for advanced computing, as well as the known gaps. So as I mentioned, the three main definitions I want to talk about is research computing, advanced computing, and cyber infrastructure. When we talk about research computing, definitions up there, but basically the definition from an IT standpoint is that it is a single instance, a single device, a single piece of equipment. A lot of people talk about use research computing as it meaning HPC, or talk about research computing meaning all of the infrastructure and people, but really how IT looks at it is just individual components. For advanced computing, they're talking about high performance compute. That's how the IT world, not me, I'm not making up these definitions, but they're referring to high performance computing and highly qualified personnel as advanced computing. And finally, cyber infrastructure is the term that ties it all together. Cyber infrastructure is the all-encompassing definition of the research computing components, the advanced computing components, etc. Okay. The current state, unfortunately, as I'm sure most of you are aware, it's not very good. So there's very limited advanced computing partners that exist at UBC or even outside of UBC. There's significant amount of infrastructure that exists in different silos at UBC, but unfortunately that infrastructure isn't readily accessible to other research groups. So research group A buys a cluster, buys a storage, has its own infrastructure. Research group B does the same thing, so on and so on. However, as far as shared services go, primarily what exists today is within UBC IT. Compute Canada. Is everyone familiar with Compute Canada? Do you want to, for the most part? Okay. I'll talk about a bit about Compute Canada, maybe have a friend comment. As well as externally the genomic service providers. So within UBC IT, which is the primary service partner at the Vancouver campus, especially at Point Grey, they have data center co-location service, which is in the pharmaceutical sciences building. They have a brand new data center that's been rolled out. There's certain costs involved as far as the power and those sorts of things, but this is what UBC IT has provided. There's also EduCloud service and virtual server service, which allows you to provision these virtual servers with whatever capacity is required, however much RAM. It's not really your true sort of cluster environment, but if you need some dedicated CPU, RAM, to do some sort of analytics, you can provision this. The Edge Cloud service is designed to be more self-provisioning. It's really not quite entirely self-provisioning just yet, but it allows you to log in, make the changes, add more RAM, add more CPU, do all that type of work. It kind of adds extra services features to the virtual service layer, which is submitting a ticket. They provision a server on the VM. They hand you the username and password, and you go and add whatever software you need and configure it. They also have the storage grid with SATA and SAS. Again, this isn't designed for the advanced computing world in the sense of large-scale HPC clusters, large-scale analytics if you're interested in Hadoop and all that sort of stuff. This isn't the right infrastructure. However, if you're doing some smaller scale analytics and need access to resources, they are there. Now, if you're talking about the larger scale analytics and advanced computing, that's where Compute Canada comes in. So I did see some people were unfamiliar with Compute Canada, and if you are, you should be aware of what Compute Canada is and what it can offer. So Compute Canada is the umbrella organization that, is it now 4 regional divisions?
They keep renaming them.
Yeah.
So four major.
We'll call 4 major regional divisions of the high performance compute consortia across Canada. WestGrid being the HPC consortia for Western Canada. Compute Canada offers a number of different services in its portfolio, certainly storage, visualization, software, networking, and the big one is the compute servers. So it's a massive deployment. Maybe Brent, do you want to talk just briefly about some of those different options or what WestGrid has?
WestGrid, yeah, has all of them that you mentioned. Basically, at UBC, we do basic serial parallel processing. At Saskatchewan, there is a storage site where you can archive all of your data. SFU also has a large storage site as well. In fact, we just appended we're close to a petabyte storage at UBC now, so we're probably going to be restructured into the next rack allocation for serving people who have bigger data needs. So if that's your thing, then you can probably do it here and not have to move to SFU. There is a site at Manitoba, UVic. Alberta is the shared memory machine. If you have compute jobs with large memory requirements, there's a machine called Cundy there. If you need video card processing, the name escapes me now, there's a machine called Parallel in Calgary that has CUDA and all of the hardware associated with that, if you need to use that. So basically how it works is you apply for an account with Compute Canada. Usually the principal investigator is the first to apply to set up a project. You sign on under the blessing of the principal investigator, and at that point you have access to all of the hardware in Canada, not just WestGrid or anything like that. Anything, if there's something in Toronto or an AceNet or something that suits your needs better, you have access to all of it. You just apply for the individual accounts after it all starts with the Compute Canada account.
Yeah, good. And most of those resources are available at no charge as well. I think there's still some in some or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, it should almost be 100%.
Yeah. So access to these facilities, to these resources, there is default resource allocations that you're entitled to, and if you need additional resources, you can submit a resource allocation request. Roman, who will be joining us once he's done his financial meeting, which is very important, will be joining us, and if you contact Brent or Roman with any questions or details, they can help facilitate that. There's also a WestGrid mailing list that's available. All the information is available online.
Yeah, basically how it works is I handle all of the hardware and OS provisioning responsibilities, because I'm not too familiar with all of the whole administrative side. So if you have any administrative questions, Roman is your best contact.
Good.
Hey, Brent, sorry, so there's just the two of you guys, right?
Correct.
Do all of it.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
there's
just-
two-
In the UBC.
Yes, specifically.
Yeah, there's two clusters here. One in Clink Building, which is an older cluster built in 2003, and then the one in Chemistry Building, which was provisioned in 2009 and 2011. We take care of both of those.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's important to note too that it isn't just Brent and Roman available to you, it's the extension of all the Westford staff. If you're working at UBC, it's ideal to work with someone close to the ground, but if there's a different skill set or looking at a different cluster or different questions that come up, the Westford team is a quite close-knit team and they all talk regularly.
Yeah. There's a support mailing list that all the eyes in Westford see, so any of your questions, if Roman or I don't know, there will be someone else who will come and grab it.
So just out of curiosity, as far as the type of research that's going on, we're talking specifically about genomics and bioinformatics. Are most people interested in the genomics bioinformatics piece in here? Yes, okay, all right. And just out of curiosity, how many of you have your own sequencers? Okay, good. All right, so the genomic service providers that exist out there, most of you are probably already familiar with them. There's a massive long list to go through. Most of them are available looking at the Aluna website, their partner site, but there's many, many more. Even on campus, there's different groups that offer some services. But primarily, there's the BC Genome Sciences Center, which if you have 4 or 5 months to wait, is a great place to go. There's Genome Quebec, which can turn around the information substantially faster and has a long list of services as well. Again, it's sequencing services, bioinformatics services, and depends on which group, they do different types, but all the information is available on the site. There's also the Center for Applied Genomics. I believe that's out in Ontario. Yeah, okay. They also offer sites, but there's also a lot of services overseas, internationally, a lot of work that's in Beijing, China. Again, the Illumina CS Pro Services site lists off all the different groups, which continent they're on, the different types of services that they offer. So if there's something specific you're looking for, that's a good site. It does cost money in most cases. But these are the service providers that exist out there. So, what are the known gaps that exist for providing support to the genomics and bioinformatics research that's happening? One is infrastructure. I don't think that's a big shocker to anybody. We are missing that big component that allows you that shared infrastructure, that large storage, the compute necessary. Talking outside of Compute Canada, because that is part of UBC's infrastructure. But when you go out and buy the hardware and where you store it, how you can share it, et cetera, that's a big gap that exists, or at least a strategy on how to make that more flexible to you. The operational and technical support is another big missing gap. The IT service partners that we do have here in the Vancouver campus don't provide HPC operational support necessarily. They don't provide the technical support to install the different applications that need to be installed, blast, or whatever you're going to be working on. Privacy and security compliance. We know that this is a big issue, especially depending on what type of genomics research you're doing and where you're involved in that chain. But the privacy and security compliance support is a big missing piece, and that's also tied to data management planning. And data management planning, not in the sense of hardware data management planning, like disaster recovery, et cetera, but data management planning as in the bioinformatics. How many runs are you going to do? Are you doing whole genomes? Are you going to do how many runs and how much data are you going to need? Are you going to need, what's the throughput? All that sort of information, as well as the analytic portion of bioinformatics, where it's how are you going to analyze the data? What tools are you going to use? What's the compression? What are you going to retain the data? Are you going to discard the data but keep the raw samples? All that sort of stuff. Scientific support, which goes back to that bioinformatics piece, the data scientist piece. A lot of This work relies heavily on our graduate and undergraduate community to help support a lot of this work, which means the training and education component that exists for some of these students is substantially lacking. It takes a long time to bring people up to speed on how to use this different technology, how to use the different tool sets, how to run this data, and especially in genomics and the bioinformatics world where you need to be a programmer slash DB specialist slash scientist slash the list goes on. So we do know that those are significant gaps that exist at the campus. And I want to leave lots of time for the open discussion and feedback. And here's what the future state topics are looking like. So recently we made, UBCIT asked that research IT support, and again, just to make it clear, so I don't report directly to UBCIT. Our team members are made up of all of the major IT departments that exist. So Faculty of Medicine's MedIT, UBCIT, UBC Okanagan IT. It's one of the few true system-level, system-wide units. So we work with all the partners. We're involved in all the different departments. We're working with all their different teams, which can be a little problematic. But I want to make it clear that this isn't just about UBCIT. This is about the entire institution. So UBCIT asked Research IT Support to come to a town hall and speak with Helen Burt, our AVP, on the needs of the research community at UBC. One of the things that she mentioned was the desperate need, I don't think she said desperate, but the importance of coming up with what she called the research computing strategy for UBC. And really in the terms of IT terms, that's the UBC cyber infrastructure strategy. So how are we going to invest in infrastructure, services, highly qualified personnel, the training and knowledge and education as an institution? This isn't just an IT problem. It's not just going to be solved through an IT initiative. I think that we can probably all agree here that that's probably best, that IT doesn't make all these decisions on your behalf. And that's not the point. Come on down, Roman. You have a seat of honor at the front. No worries. Now, the next difficult question, Compute Canada and CFI. Just out of curiosity, as far as infrastructure funding goes, how many have used CFI for the majority of their infrastructure funding? Okay. How many have used like NSERC, Tri-Council, Genome Canada? Yeah, a little bit, okay. So one of the things that has happened, and if you've applied recently, you probably became aware of this, is that CFI and the other federal granting agencies, of which Genome, the Tri-Council, NSERC, CERC, CIHR, are also coming into play. It's stated that if you're investing in high-performance compute infrastructure, storage, compute clusters, etc., you must do it in collaboration with Compute Canada. So what does this mean for UBC? The government has also expressed an interest in consolidation of data centers, data infrastructure. While UBC does have the gear that exists within the chemistry building and the old Clink building, the new data center that we have on campus doesn't qualify as a Compute Canada data center. So that means new infrastructure, in the government's viewpoint, is at UBIC, at SFU, and another certain provider that focuses on genomic research in BC, and building a partnership with them that I'm not supposed to talk about, but it's underway. So this is a major issue, this is a major concern for UBC. The advantage that we have is that our VP Research sits on the board of Compute Canada, and it'll be interesting to see there's actually a meeting that's coming up talking about this very matter. It's actually, this whole topic is actually discussed at least on a weekly basis right now for many hours. But that conversation's happening. So this is going to be a significant challenge on how we address the cyber infrastructure at UBC. When we know that there's a bunch of resources that already exist, we know that there's a whole bunch of sequencers that are out there that need the storage, that need the compute, that need the analytics. And certainly, depending on where you're located, your network connectivity can be, of huge concern. So that's a very important piece to note. The next one is data management services, which also implies the privacy and security compliance, providing the support there to help plan what your data management needs will be, to help plan the storage, to help you when you're writing your proposals, know what infrastructure is going to be required, what growth rate to expect. We really feel that the data management services is going to be very important moving forward, especially if you start looking at NIH or NSF funding. The tri-councils are looking at the requirement, much like NSF and NIH, for submission of data management plans as part of your grant application. I think some of the tri-councils have worked on certain grants recently have asked for the data management plans. So this is something that's coming. And as most of the research community already has to act as HR, finance, IT administrators, privacy and security compliance experts, et cetera, we're trying to find a way that we can reduce that workload to help out. Next piece on the table is the advanced computing services. So that is partnering up with Compute Canada with the resources that they have, as well as with other groups on campus that have their advanced computing support staff. So there's already a case where engineering and UBC IT have collaborated on building up that skill set within UBC IT under a very distinct advanced computing sort of banner. There's other groups that are interested in expanding that model. So whether or not that exists within UBC IT solely, or whether that's a partnership with the community, that's all still going to be determined, but that is something that's being developed. So it's not just going to be Brent and Roman, it's not just going to be Compute Canada, it will be a collaboration of the whole group to build up that, to have that on-site support. Plus, if Brent and Roman decide it's time to get away on vacation, they should be allowed to go on vacation. I'm not sure if these guys have had a day off in a while.
Not at the same time.
Yeah, not at the same time. Now, I also mentioned scientific support services. So this has been a topic of great discussion for a very long time. Whether it's ongoing support or whether it's sort of intermittent, certain periods of time support to help build the plan, to help build the database, to help build the metadata. However you need to succeed in your research project, there are certain types of skills that you'll need at certain different periods of time. Some of those skills are across multiple research groups, and it's been expressed to us that that's one of the bottlenecks in the research community, is having to build up the knowledge to find the right people to help with that big piece, and then that knowledge is kind of lost because now they need to learn this next step, and they need to learn this next phase, and it keeps going and going. So scientific support services is something else that's being discussed. And last, and certainly not least, is the training and education. As you all know, there's a wide range of different tools and technologies depending on what type of research you're involved with, what you're interested in the bioinformatics, the different analytic tools, the different sequencing and assembly tools that you can use. It's just a lot of different information to choose from. And having that training and education on how to use those tools, how to submit jobs to HPC clusters, how to use the different analytic tools, that it's been made perfectly clear many, many times that this is something that the university needs to provide the research community to help support the graduate students, the undergraduate students. They're doing a lot of that operational support in many cases, and giving them a leg up, both when they take off on their own research endeavors, but certainly when they're supporting you as well. So finally, I'm a couple minutes over, but I wanted to leave lots of time to get feedback from the community. Like I said, Helen has asked that we collect the information that we get from the research community on what the strategy should be, what the cyber infrastructure would look like, what the priority services should be. We've listed off our interpretation of what we hear back. It's not just decided on a whim. This is the information that over the past year has been given to us. But we're also quite aware, and we communicate regularly, this is not an IT initiative. It shouldn't be an IT initiative, it's not going to be an IT initiative, this is going to be driven by the research community. IT is going to be here to help support some of those services, the infrastructure, the highly qualified personnel that are required. But I don't think you want IT deciding for you what the advanced computing service or strategy looks like at UBC. The other things that we can talk about, the future state priorities. I listed off a number of different things that we're looking at. Perhaps you feel very strongly that there's one thing we should be focusing on first, that there's something more important than another. The scientific and operational governance component. Again, knowing that this infrastructure is very much going to be designed around the needs of the research community, what does scientific governance look like? Who's going to decide the best way to deploy this? Because if we are going to do this at UBC, there is going to have to be some sacrifice. We're not going to be able to build the perfect model for every single research product that's going to be conducted. So what does the scientific governance look like? Who decides what's the best approach to deploy these services? As well as the operational governance. So maintaining the equipment, maintaining the services, training the highly qualified personnel, etc. Sequencing and bioinformatics. It's a broad topic. You know, it's not just this is one tool, one solution, this is the only way to do it. You can buy commercial software, you can use Hadoop, you can use all sorts of different things when you're talking about the bioinformatics analytics. We're open to all of it. Big and fast data. Everyone talks about big data. Everyone's now talking about big and fast data. There's different companies coming out. Pivotal's one good example where they're looking at making the big data more interactive, faster, doing faster queries, getting faster results. And finally, highly qualified personnel, the data scientists, bioinformaticians. Are those the groups that we should be looking at? Is there something, a specific skill set that you see applying to a broad audience? We're open to hearing everything and anything. These are some suggestions of talking points. Again, these are sort of the top 6 priorities that people have come to us and said, this is what we're interested in. These are the things that need to be figured out. But certainly this is your chance to help guide that strategy for the institution. So we've given ourselves now 25 minutes to have this topic. Does anyone want to start grilling us, complaining, throwing stones? Please don't. Yes?
I'll just toss a stone. Can you explain why the new university data center doesn't qualify as Compute Canada worthy?
It's not that it's not Compute Canada worthy, it's that the federal government says we don't need new data centers. We already have plenty. We want consolidation. And because this new data center came up after the federal government said no more, that's why. So it's not that it doesn't qualify, it's just that they've kind of drawn the line in the sand and said no more new data centers. We have enough data centers, figure out how to make those work or how to consolidate them even further. So that's the big issue that we have to get through. Not to say that we've given up on it. We haven't. We're still trying to make it qualify.
What would be the, I don't know, practical implication of gaining or not having Compute Canada approval for the pharmacy data center?
Well, as far as your infrastructure, so if there is a need that you have that says, I'm going to require this particular configuration, and you sit down with Roman and Roman says, yes, you know what, you are quite right, that's the configuration you need, and right now we don't have that in our inventory. So CFI says, wonderful, we're going to fund your infrastructure, but your infrastructure is now going to be housed at SFU or UVic, which in many cases can be fine. And it will be managed by Compute Canada staff, Westgrid, their site leads that exist out of those campuses, etc. Or even remotely from UBC. It doesn't have to be physically there. In some cases you do for a failed hard drive, but that's what the implication is. As long as the network infrastructure is compatible, here at Point Grey, we're quite lucky. There is a pretty substantial investment in the network infrastructure, but if you're a researcher or your research team is not on site and they're at Point Grey campus, for example, or at the VGH campus out by the hospital, St. Paul's, or somewhere around there, the networking out there is less significant. Horrible, awful, disastrous are ways to describe it. So in that case, it becomes very difficult. There's probably other, the further away you get from the sequencers, the further away you get from the storage, the further away you get from your compute clusters, there's obvious issues that come up about data transfer and what's the best way to do it, where should the data reside, where's the big data going to be, those types of questions. And those we don't have answers to yet. But that's from our perspective.
There's another issue when you design the systems. We're currently deploying terascale systems that use roughly 300-400 kilowatts of power. And the next generation that Compute Canada probably wants to push out are the petascale machines, and now we're talking like getting close to megawatts of power. And it's a question of whether or not your campus can provide this much power for just one cluster. So SFU has a really nice setup where their data center is the old water tower. And it's like a football field underneath it, which is concrete and 2 power sources, BC Hydro and SFU. So that's one of the reasons why, you got to look elsewhere other than Point Grey to do these massive installations.
And we are tapped at Point Grey. It would be a massive investment to increase the power coming in campus. Is that a fair assessment? Massive investment?
Oh, I believe so.
That's much.
Yeah.
Yes. What are your other thoughts? Anyone on what the priorities should be for not just IT, but if we go back to Helen, what is it you would like to express to her, or John Hepburn, if you had your chance to say, this is what's important to genomics research, to bioinformatics on campus, this is where we need to focus our energies first. Does anyone have any particular feelings on that? Yeah.
I think the training and the scientific support services have to be driven by the academic mission.
Mm-hmm.
So what the research community really needs from you guys is the top 4.
Well, again, don't consider this IT.
Yeah.
So information and technology is what we're interested in. So I'm not saying that IT is going to run the training, IT is going to run the scientific support, but this all ties together, and we have to know how. So again, don't consider it just what IT can do, but consider what the institution can do for you.
But there are certain places on campus now where elements of this are being offered,
Yep.
such as, well, there should be offered or were direct to be offered. So I think getting those nodes together is a real priority. And so between the Life Sciences Institute,
Mhm.
Chibi, the Biodiversity Research Center, there's a lot of people that have the skills, but we need to get them centralized. We need them all talking to each other.
Okay. Yep. And looking at the model that would be there, that would be, I hate to use the word committee, but group gathering, something in that sense where this collective can come up and work together. Okay. All right. Any other ideas, suggestions on what's the most important, where's the major roadblocks in your research right now? If you could have one thing off your wish list that we could do, we as an institution, not we as IT, but we as an institution can help you, what are the priorities that come to the top of your mind? Yes?
So I'm a sysadmin in a small department, and I don't get out much. And the times I've had to deal with IT services have been less than stellar. Response time is normal, visibility into what they're doing, if they're doing anything, which I'm sure they are, but I sure as hell don't know. My inclination is not to say, here's a bunch of stuff that I'm confident handing off to them without having a great deal more visibility of what's going on. Without some trust gains in a meeting somewhere or something. Yeah, I would. It's been a problem before, and I think there would have to be some serious changes to how they provide services to get confident.
Yes.
I have to agree with you here. I'm also a system of a small mission department, and I don't think the focus at Greece IT is research. Maybe they're looking at it now that they sort of settle the business administrative side and teaching. But I think their focus is still teaching and learning because they're still grilling us about how our teaching and learning environments are.
Yes.
And I think our department has a mathematics program that successfully had close to go through and successfully working in our labs that are in need of this. So the issue is that our department is hiring more and more mathematicians and computer scientists that have little knowledge of biology. And to to educate each other is pretty frustrating.
Right.
And I'm constantly interacting with every group, trying to figure out how they're going to get it, and I don't have answers for their questions. It's pretty frustrating.
Yes.
So, and with the support we have on campus, I think everyone else in the life sciences are sort of in this situation where, so what do we do? How are we going to resolve these problems that come up? Because it's only going to get, the data set's only going to get bigger. And the worst part, the researchers don't know how the data sets, how big or large data sets will be. So using resources that are constrained resources that provided from Westgrid and other clusters, they can't assess how much time and how much computing power they actually need. Because some of these researchers are scanning the entire sea, and that's a lot of data. Yes. So.
Okay, good. So, to just one point, UBCIT, yes, you're right, in both counts. One, their focus has not been research. Two, that there isn't a lot of transparency into what they're doing and that the trust doesn't need to exist and that the way the services are being delivered is not ideal in several situations. However, they are also aware of that. And our job as far as research IT support is also to remind them on a regular basis where it's not working, where there's no transparency. So I agree that that is an ongoing issue and that is something that we're looking to try and figure out how to address. It's been massive growth in that department. I think, I don't know, 5 years ago it was 70 people, now it's 450 or something like that.
They absorb some of the
Yes, as the consolidation has happened, different onboarding of faculties and departments, et cetera, the staff has grown, the needs have grown, the services they provide have in fact grown, because before it was central infrastructure, now they're adding services.
So we find that it doesn't sort of match what our needs are as researchers.
Yes.
And it's very frustrating. So,
Yes.
which results to researchers just finding their own ways and having an IT staff support that.
Yep, I agree.
Which is not.
No, I agree. And one of the things, again, so I've been dedicated, I've been in IT for 15 years or so. I think I'm around 11 years dedicated to supporting the research community. So I've been working with the research community for quite a long time. When they came and asked and said, hey, can you help us out in Vancouver? Using the model that is developed down at the Okanagan campus, said sure. Sounds like fun. And it started off with no additional resources, no extra people, just come make it happen. So we've shown that there is a desperate need out there, that there is value in supporting the research community. We do offer something that we call operational gap support. So when researchers' need go past the point of what a standard service partner can provide, that's where research IT support looks at investing and supporting services. However, in Vancouver right now, to be perfectly honest, we are just trying to get that base layer of services to an appropriate point that can be sustainable and valuable, and only focusing on very few of those services, because it is a big job to undertake. So yes, I agree. The services for the research community are not very valuable at this time. In fact, the support services for researchers up until now have really not been thought about. It's really been focused on the administrative needs of the campus, as well as some of the instructional and teaching needs. But as UBC IT has matured, because the way that UBC IT was 5 years ago is substantially different from today, and it'll be substantially different from what you see 3 years from now. They have undergone massive growth, massive change, and continue to change. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the world can stop working and wait for everything to be finished. So in the meantime, research IT support is here to help facilitate that, both from an IT perspective as well as a research community perspective. It's not an ideal situation. We have very limited staff. You're looking at the one staff in Vancouver down at the front here, Edith. However, if there is a major issue, major roadblock, please feel free to contact us. And we would also encourage you too that if there's something that Compute Canada and Westgrid can provide, so you can offload some of those services, to certainly come, send an email to Branch and Roman, set up some time to chat. Again, it's just the two of them, but they have a much larger group behind them that exists across Western Canada and even nationally that can help solve problems. Did you have a comment earlier?
I was just going to pile onto that.
Bring it on.
you'd get such a change and a whole bunch of solutions in this direction if you could change the attitude of central IT. So I don't even like calling them UBC IT because it's part of the propaganda machine. It's felt totally adversarial over the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go and look at their website and read the verbiage there's UBC IT and then there's end users. They like to pretend that 80% of the IT staff at UBC doesn't exist. That's why that 80% starts any interaction with them. Well, mistrust is like one way to do it, but
Okay.
suspicion, okay? And there are all sorts of things like this. If they regarded departmental IT folk as part of their customers, they'd be everybody's friend. And we could set up like vacation coverage and things like that. Okay, some departments do have their own computer room still, right?
Yep.
They need some help setting up servers. Well, who do you call, right? Everything's ad hoc because there's nothing at a higher level at UBC IT that you can talk to, even though you know they have the expertise because they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So they just need to change that and put departmental IT guys on their chart as customers. And I think everything would start to change. That's not the entire solution, but it's a big part of it.
Yes. So we'll put down significant work with UBC IP as an action item.
Yeah. Just their mandate or how they see their role.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's shared across multiple people. Like I said, I actually report to the Okanagan campus, which has its own separate IT, and there are shared feelings of that same nature. Yes?
Yeah, I think it's one important function would be helping people plan for when they're applying for money.
Yep.
So anything there to do with the last.
Yeah, so I didn't include that specifically in the advanced
But I'm
computing
not
report.
really, so just providing a body of institutional information and knowledge that people, since we can't rely on IT services, that people can go to and say, this is what I'm planning on doing, and can you help me make sure that in my grant application I get the right resources, I have a place to put my infrastructure if I'm buying it myself, if I'm not buying it myself, where, what's available for me to use. So that so people, to make it an efficient way of people being able to, because I assume that all this stuff that you've written here is not going to be paid for by UBC, or is it? I mean, there's a lot on the table here, but I don't see any resources actually coming to anybody to do all this stuff.
Yes, it will
So I
not be
assume
entirely funded.
What's that?
It will not be entirely funded by UBC, and what portion of it will be, I obviously can't comment on, because it would be something that comes out of the VP Research Office or the institution as far as its strategy. How much is it going to invest? In addition to the operational support funds that come in, how much money will it invest in the research excellence or support of research excellence at UBC? That I can't answer, but it's...
But somebody eventually has to make the decision in terms of, because it's fine to put up all sorts of stuff that needs to happen, but if there's no resources to do it, it's just all words, right?
Well, let me go back again to research IT support. So research IT support, one of the primary services that we provide is sitting down when you're thinking of writing your proposal, saying, this is my idea, you walk us through what the business needs are, we look at the data flow, like I say, what's the data acquisition look like, the analysis, the dissemination, who are your collaborators, what type of data are you collecting, the privacy and security compliance, and then we go back and we contact all of our subject matter experts. I've sent many emails to Brent and Rowan. How is this going to work? Can Compute Canada deliver this, and this is how much storage they need? Or looking to UBC IT, or looking to Okanagan IT, or looking to BCNet. So we go out and we try and find the subject matter experts to do the functional specification on here's all the equipment that you'll need, and as well as help with the consolidated quote, and if it's CFI, that's also identifying the in-kind and cash contributions and all that sort of work. Then when it comes time to the post award, when you get the funding, we encourage everyone to revisit us. We go through the process again, this time, adding the architectural design components, because we don't go into all the detail during the proposal, because we all know how often things change by the time you actually get your money. But we do try and give you that plus or minus 10% accurate depiction of what infrastructure you need and how much it's going to cost. So there's that piece. And the institution.
So if someone, say a new faculty member got here tomorrow, and they wanted to do this, would they go to, how would our department head, how would she tell them, like, what do they do?
Yes.
Like,
So
they
one
go
of
to
the
the
things that
DP research office, they like, it's all, seems kind of nebulous right now.
No, it is nebulous, because we haven't announced ourselves because we only have one person. So for the past year, it's been, let's see if this model will work in Vancouver. We've shown that it does work.
Okay.
Now we're asking to continue to support that. So at the Okanagan campus, this is a fully functioning model. The IT department, the Office of Research Services, all those different groups, we work very closely with one another. When a researcher wants something, new faculty member, they're aware of our services.
Okay.
Either by us
So that's what
directly
you're
or by
trying to
somebody
set
else.
up here.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And how it's going to be working in Vancouver, because it is very different. There's multiple IT departments. It's very spread out. We work very closely with client services managers within IT. We spend a lot of time working with the Institutional Programs Office, with the Office of Research Services, Mark Kirk and all of his team. Even Spark, if you're involved with Don Brooks, etc. So we're trying to say, this is what's coming, and this is how we want to be prepared to help support that. And not just being able to do it ourselves, but being able to train our partners to say, this is the process, here's the restrictions, here's eligible expenses, non-eligible, here's what Compute Canada can provide, here's what BCNet can provide, here's all the different collaboration tools. So it's a massive undertaking, don't get me wrong, but this is all work that's already underway. And I'm sorry that we haven't been able to announce it, but we're a little terrified that Edith will explode. Which is a very real possibility.
One thing I'd like to really see would be, well, one of it is like just the awareness on campus, like both at the researcher level as well as the departmental IT. Just knowing, for those who know, like already grant enrollment and what they do at Westbury, et cetera, but not everybody knows that. And one of the biggest things that would be, I think, beneficial for the community would to see a real research focused right on the UBC.ca website that goes, like, it's like a big section. People can click, this is the research we do. You're a researcher for computational or whatever it is that fits, whether it's Westbury or some other service that they're requiring. They know and they can quickly navigate to it.
Yeah.
And so we also know it's very prevalent, very dumb, for researchers to have this right off the UBC.ca website, as opposed to have to specifically go to the Westbury site or having to know that you have to go to the Computing Canada site. It should be right at UBC.ca website.
Yep, I agree. One of the changes that we made at the Okanagan campus early on was the research landing page for the Okanagan campus used to be Office of Research Services. In fact, there are many more departments that support the research community: the library, IT, Office of Research Services, supply management, operations. So there's a whole bunch of different departments that actually provide support to researchers that they're now not be aware of.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? And how do we also make that service catalog, so to speak, of all of our partners? How do we inform everyone of all the services Compute Canada has if someone's not aware Compute Canada even exists? And you're right, that is something that's also been discussed, and there is a Research IT Support Advisory Committee that's in place. Helen Burt co-chairs it with the Director of Operations for Faculty of Medicine's MedIT, and has representation from the research community as well as on the administrative side. Martin Kirk, Alan Bell from the library sit on it. So there is an advisory committee in place that's looking at these issues, and that once it's published, it's been talking for about 6-7 months now, mostly understanding what the current state of support has been, which has been a very active topic. But that can be the channel that those types of priorities can be brought to. But by all means, you can either pass that information along to me, or if it's going through, you know, the channels up to Helen Birch. However, this information needs to be communicated, and we agree that that's definitely a priority. That
Yeah, we're just moving it from those in the know versus like everyone aware on campus that these services, these platforms do exist. This is the mechanisms for those who are writing CFI grants that are specifically tied into genomics research. This is where you need to go. These are the people you need to contact. These are the consultants that can provide you insight into when you write your CFI grant and all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of the direction for us that we'd be interested in seeing.
Yeah, so from a researcher's perspective, some of the priorities are that sort of consultation support at the pre-award and post-award stage, the communication of different services that are available, including, you know, Compute Canada and the library and all that sort of stuff being really available. On the IT side, that's more transparency and cooperation, collaboration with UBC IT. It's kind of a nice way to put, I think, what everyone was thinking. Is there any other major priorities, either from a research perspective or from an IT perspective, that you would like Helen to be aware of, or me to make Oliver or CIO aware of? Yes, in the back.
Tons of disk space.
Yeah, you can go first.
No, I just said it. We need lots of disk space.
Yes, and the right kind of disk space too. Yes.
Maybe some training for IT support, sports research, and they don't have the training in the science that they're supporting. So like, I'm IT admin here at the Microsoft Labs. I don't really know about the science that's going on. So some basic level training, just so I can understand better some of the requirements, would be great.
Okay, so are you thinking the actual?
So not just training of the researchers, but training the IT support staff as well that's just been hired as IT support staff in, you know, to bridge them, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of science training would be great as
Okay.
well, but it's targeted towards an IT support staff. So,
Right, so maybe that's up under the collaboration with, you had mentioned on the faculty side, looking at that scientific support model, that training and knowledge transfer, that education piece that exists, and bridging it with the IT training that needs to happen. So there's some knowledge of the actual business of the science you're conducting, and understanding of the type of science that you're involved with. Again, you talk about genomics, and I could be talking about 50 different types of genomics research. I just say genomics to keep my brain in
But
check.
at the, I was just at the University of California at Davis, and they have a genomics center
Yes.
with the cross appointment of
Yes.
faculty from all parts of campus.
Yes.
Something like that, where there's a centralized because the real challenge I think really is the bioinformatics, besides the IT side.
Yep.
So to have some kind of centralized cross-campus grouping of knowledge. So, because right now, you've done a great job identifying where are the gaps, but how are we going to, nobody at UBC, as far as I can see, is showing a way forward. How do we get past these?
Yes, and my job is to make sure that someone listens and comes up with a solution. Good or bad, we start stepping forward. Because
So-
right now we're in a holding pattern.
This is one of those things that's going to take a lot of resources, and
Yes.
that is to make a central genomic bioinformatics center.
So, not that it's going to give you any sense of comfort, but University of California and the work that they've done there, especially with the UCSD data center, so the supercomputing center, as well as the data management tools and processes that they have in place, as well as that linking and identification of all the different types of research, the researchers themselves, and the different facilities that are available within the institution, we are very, very aware of and working with. So, and we've also worked with others in Duke and Baylor School of Medicine and Stanford University and a whole bunch of different groups. So this past year has really been very active in that information gathering, learning what the best practices are. By the way, there's not many. Trying to figure out who's doing it better than most. Is this something that we could apply to Canada? Because going back to the operational support, Even within Canada, we're quite limited. I think we're around 20 cents on the dollar for every research dollar comes in. There's about 20 cents that can go to operational support or supporting the research community. In the States, they're around 45, 50 cents on the dollar. So we're already in a very difficult position when we compare ourselves to the States because we get half the funding. But it doesn't mean we're not going to try. So thank you for pointing that out. It's an excellent point. And like I said, I think if there's other places that you've seen that are doing something really good or have, you know, a particular initiative that you think would be of value to UBC, please bring it to my attention. Again, it doesn't have to be IT specific. We're not, you know, our goal here is to enhance the research experience. Our focus is on IT, but it doesn't mean I don't work with others that are involved in other aspects of it. Like I work very closely with the library and supply management and all of these different groups. Trying to build up that research community on campus. So please, if something comes up and my name's the only one you can think of, send it my way and I'll make sure the right people know about it. So I think we've already ran over. Thank you all for coming. If you have any other questions, I think Sean can give you my contact information and I'll also give Sean the presentation with all the links and stuff in it. But thank you.
Those book the seat with the lunch meeting can move the discussion to the other room. We have another 45 minutes to talk in that room.
Yes, throw more rocks at us.
Okay, thank you. Tony, you take care of this?
Yeah, I'll take it.